Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tony Demakis. And man, it's been a morning already, but that's okay. It's good. We're going to get through this. We are a podcast dedicated to U.S. manufacturing and what that looks like, and telling the stories and the successes and the failures of other businesses around the country. And so we can all learn from it. We can all grow from it, and we can all get better together. So this is a live show. And so if you have any questions, if you have any comments while you're watching, while you're listening, go ahead and type that in the chat, whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Facebook. And Laurie and I will be happy to answer those questions to the best of our ability. We want you to be able to participate in the show and not just sit back and listen. But if you just want to sit back and listen, that's fine too. But if you are listening with us live, go ahead, put your name in the chat, put your company in the chat, and we'll give you a shout out. And you at least get a little bit of exposure to the 5 people that might listen. And that's something. It's worth something, right? Alliance, who's Alliance? Alliance is mold makers that don't build molds. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's the truth. So we do all the things that mold makers don't want to do or don't have time to do. Building molds is your job. What we want to do is the laser welding, laser engraving, hot runner repair, preventative mold maintenance, polishing, all of those peripheral things that need to be done that you don't have the time to do. So let us handle that for you. On top of it, we also have the only American-made laser welding and laser engraving machines. I think from what I've seen, they're the only ones made here in America completely. And that's something that we're really, really proud of. So we make all those here in Chicago, Illinois, and we're happy to come out and do demos and do whatever else you need. But that's us in a nutshell. And so what are we doing here today? Today, we are going to talk to somebody that I really, really, really respect. She's always a powerhouse in the industry whenever she talks and tells us about what's coming in the future, the state of the union, the state of where we're at in manufacturing and mold building. And she fights for us. And she's pretty awesome. So Laurie from Harbour Results is joining us. Hello, Laurie.
How you doing, Tony? It's great to be here.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Things are good.
That's good. You're in Michigan, yeah?
I'm currently in Florida, actually. It's my
good
winter
for you. That doesn't suck.
No, it definitely does not. So it's good.
If I were to say I was jealous, it would just be like slightly jealous. We started getting snow now in Illinois, so that's a thing. But what are you going to do? It's wintertime. We've gotten lucky enough without snow, so I guess we're due. It's pretty when it first comes down.
Right, for just a minute, right?
So how about this? For everybody that doesn't know you, which is like 5 people probably, why don't you tell people who you are and what your business is, and we'll go from there.
So Laurie Harbour, President and CEO of Harbour Results. Our team ultimately is working on driving North American manufacturing. And that is our goal and our purpose and our focus day in and day out. It's what I call our why. It's why we get out of bed every single day. So we're working with mold makers. We're working with die shops. We work with a lot of molders and then stampers, as well as some of the die cast communities. So we spend time in plants every single day and go to great shows, like Amerimold and MBA and all the trade shows that we can get to in order to see new technologies. So our team's in driving process improvement, doing strategy, and doing quite a bit of benchmarking. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. There's more to it, but we can talk through that.
Yeah, I think that's where people know of you and where they've seen you, right? You've been to, how many MAP conferences, how many AMBA conferences. I'm sure you do a million other things on top of that. Those are the places I've seen you.
Right. Well, we go to all those shows because that's where our customers are. And our goal is to share as much of that information, market intel. How's the state of, as you said, sort of the state of the union of what's going on in mold making, particularly for this group. And there's a lot happening. So it's good to be able to interact and network with the mold builders out there.
Yeah, and the good news is we do have some people watching right now. Hannah Coombs from Westminster Tool is joining us. She says your favorite Coombs is here. I'm not going to pick favorites. That would be wrong. And one of you is going to get mad at me. So I'm going to say yes. Keith Kozlarak. I don't know Keith. Keith is here from the YCM Alliance. Keith, welcome. And Richard Evans, my good friend Richard Evans says, long time no see. I just spent a week with Richard Evans at the molding and mold making conference from Gardner. So that was a great thing. He says that he's looking forward to hearing about the state of our industry. So, hopefully you'll have some good news for everybody while we get into some of the nuts and bolts about what's coming and where we're at and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually very bullish about the tool industry right now.
Yeah.
The next 12 months are going to be a little bit challenging just from a recessionary standpoint, as well as a sort of product development gap. But the balance of this decade looks to be particularly strong. There's a lot of automotive coming. There's a lot of non-automotive, a lot of medical. So I'm really pretty positive about what it looks like for the future.
What's nice for us and what we're hearing from our customers, what we're seeing from our customers speaks to exactly what you're saying, right? I mean, we keep hearing recession, but a lot of what we do is medical products, caps and closure work, things along those lines. And that hasn't seemed to slow down. And the people we're talking to are telling us that they're keep building and they're still looking for more people and they're trying to find ways to get it all done. And so all of that speaks to exactly what you're saying is that, you may hear different things, but it seems like it's moving still positively in the right direction.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the economy is certainly headed towards or is in a recession, however you want to describe that. We study the economy a lot. The challenge is it's not really so much that for manufacturing. We still have a tremendously high durable goods demand. So again, RVs, boats, cars, and frankly, the people in the economy who have the money to buy those have obtained more wealth through COVID. So it's really, we have to remember that when we make tools today, it's for product of the future, right? And so
Right.
most of what we're seeing is product that will service in 24 or 25, 26, right? So there's definitely a tremendous amount of automotive demand for new product as the world goes to this battery electric vehicle, but also continues to make all of their internal combustion engine products. So it means more models, which means more tools. And that's part of what is kind of leading the way along with the other industries that many of your listeners are in.
Yeah. How, I'm assuming you were at the MAP conference. I heard good things about the MAP conference.
Yes, I was there. I had a whole team of people there and it was a great event. I mean, there was 600 or so people and definitely people seeing some softening of demand for product in this back half because of inflation. And frankly, I think that there's some good to that. I know that may sound crazy, but this dying to get people and struggling to get material and all of the things that have caused so many supply chain challenges doesn't hurt us to soften just a little bit. There's still a good sense of demand and again, most of the economists we follow believe this will be a relatively small recession, but next year is probably going to be more like this year.
Listen, I'll take more like this year. It was one of those things where we ended last year. Our fiscal year ends the end of August, and we ended really, really high. I mean, it was a great year for us, and so much so that when we looked at forecasting for the next year, we thought, let's just do the same thing, right? Like, if we can do what we did last year, we're going to be ahead. We're gonna be happy people. There's no reason to get greedy and say now we want another % growth.
Right. And I think that that's going to be the norm for most people next year. I do think, though, that after 24 and 25, you're going to see tremendous demand for tools, particularly, again, for automotive, but really in any sector, because whether it's, John Deere or it's medical, we're seeing a lot of move to electrification and to new types of medical devices and things of that nature. All of our forecasts are showing pretty high growth on an overall compounded annual growth rate for the next several years.
It's good news, right? I remember a couple of the AMBA conferences where it seemed like there was almost a negative, not spin, but that the trajectory was supposed to be going south.
Right. Well, we definitely did go south as we entered into 2020 and 2021, particularly in automotive. Again, I think, COVID created some new opportunities in the medical space and in other, sort of changing of behavior as we all kind of went into traveling differently and, celebrating differently and those types of things. But we knew that there was an automotive gap that was coming in 20 and 2021. So that slowed down some of the big, large shops that we all know. But we're going to see some return to that as we move into things like big trucks and
Right.
battery electric product and stuff like that. So still, like anything else, those of you who are tool makers, it's a cyclical business, right? We go up and down with product development.
That's one of the things that I think is it makes me most crazy is the idea of the cyclical movement for sales and the market. You think as a business owner, no, I don't want to hear about cyclical. I want to find new customers, right?
Right.
Paying my bills doesn't care about cyclical.
Right.
People in the shop or the company wanting raises and performance bonuses and all that stuff, they don't care about cyclical. All they know is, we did this last year. What are we going to do this year? And
Right.
so, that idea of like there's going to be ebbs and flows and we just got to ride the wave, that's so hard to deal with sometimes. But I guess that comes with budgeting your business properly also.
Right. But more challenging in this tool space, right? Because you don't have this ongoing production that you signed a contract for. So
Right.
it means the sales side and the having good salespeople and out shaking the bushes anywhere you can, but still within your core competency, right? Keeping the growth within your core competency is what's driving that greatest success for the best performers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So one of the things that I want to hear about, and if you guys have questions, we got more people listening. What are the things that you want to hear Laurie talk about? Because I have some thoughts, but my thoughts might be different than your thoughts, and that's what you're here for. So go ahead and put those in the chat. I know you're there. How did your seminar go, or your leadership? I don't even know what it's called. What is it called? I was going to try and come, but it's
Our
usually the same
leadership
time as our golf out.
our leadership forum, yeah, we have a group of small and medium-sized manufacturers, about 20 folks that get together, young professionals that are sort of up and coming leaders in their business. And we do that twice a year. And this year we were in Clearwater. And actually, we had the opportunity to visit Caviform down here
Yep.
in the St. Pete area. So that was a great visit. The shop opened themselves up and really impressed by their facility. So we got to do that and teach some young folks about leadership and some of the challenges that are facing companies today. It was a great event. We had a lot of fun, and we did a really wild goose chase around downtown Clearwater Beach in the heat of the day, having to basically do a scavenger hunt. It was quite fun.
And that was September, yeah, middle of
Yeah,
September, end of September.
yep, mid-September. Yep,
And you do this twice a year.
we do it. We do it twice a year. We have a lot of owners, just like in your own situation, right, where the next generation is coming into ownership and has to be faced with new and changing decisions and things that they face every day. And it's a great group. We've got mold builders, we got molders, we have stampers, we have die shops, and it's a real mix, but it's all manufacturing. So that's what makes it cool.
So when is the next one?
May 5th.
Okay. Can I put it on my calendar? Can I come?
Absolutely.
I'm not to invite myself, but I'm going to invite myself. I tend to do that a lot sometimes.
Well, we've been trying to get you there for years, so it's time.
I know. Well, the one in September is we always do it at the same time with our golf outing and your leadership conference. So it makes it difficult.
Well, if you come in May, you can tell me when to do it in September so it doesn't conflict.
Okay. Well, we're in the same boat. We're trying to figure out the golf outing schedule right now too. So
yeah,
it's good. But I'm gonna put that in my book. May 5th through the what?
now you're going to make me look it up, right?
Well, how many days? So we can do the numbers.
It's 2 days, 2.5 days. It's actually May 4th and 5th.
Okay.
And I think we're going to be in the Michigan, Chicagoland area, so pretty close for you.
All right. And so when it comes to this, do you can anybody sign up to go? Is there like an interview process? Are you looking for specific kinds of people?
We're looking for young up and coming leaders, people who are either going to be running their business or in a key leadership position, who are open to networking and sharing thoughts and ideas, and frankly, being taken out of your comfort zone. So, our
Yeah.
job is facilitators. My partner Scott Walton and I lead it. Our job as facilitators is to get you out of your comfort zone and get you thinking about stronger leadership skills.
Well, I know that everybody that I've talked to that attends has told me that I need to go. And it's been so highly promoted to me that I it has to live up to the hype. Just knowing you and the other people that have told me those things, like Jen and Kyle and forever they've been saying you have to go to this, you have to go be part of Laurie's thing. And so
Yeah.
May 4th and 5th, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna put it in my calendar. I'm gonna tell my wife tonight, and she's gonna be so proud of me for scheduling this far in advance.
Well, the people you mentioned have started out at lower levels in their company and are now presidents or going to be presidents of their company. So it's a
Yeah,
great thing. So
it's that, and it's a good group of people to be surrounded with. I mean, they're
great.
both two excellent people. Let's see, what do we got here? We've got Chris. What's his last name? Holden says, as it relates to tool making, what trends are you seeing in technology, workforce, and reshoring? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So there's definitely reshoring going on. I struggle a little bit with the term of reshoring as it relates to tooling because I think every buy of a tool is kind of a one-off purchase as opposed to putting a whole set of molding in China and bringing it back. But we're definitely seeing both. A lot of product reshoring coming here. Much of it's going to Mexico, but that's also enabling some of the tooling to come back here. We have a lot of tool makers that are quoting tools they know they never would have quoted in the last 5 to 10 years. They were tools that went to China sort of automatically. So we're definitely seeing some of that advantage for sure. Most of that being logistics, lead time, some of those reasons. Obviously, they're still lower cost at some level, but the challenges with China shutting down for COVID and all the other things are making it more challenging. So there is definitely more work here. On the workforce and technology side, the top performers are absolutely implementing sort of what I call a technology roadmap. They're
Okay.
putting in place a lot of not just automation, but process technology. How do they take lead time out of tooling? How do they improve the process, standardize design, standardize some of the actual size and design set of the tooling so they can take time out of the lead time of the tools. And a lot of that's because we don't have the workforce that we need. And as I said earlier, we're projecting quite a strong decade of tool growth. And the challenge we're going to have is capacity. And we all know capacity tends to be limited by workforce. So
Yep.
we have to continue our own apprentice programs, even in some of these light times, and be able to, I've been trying to get out on social media as much as possible to talk about how cool manufacturing tool building is because they're great careers. We all know that, right? And
Yep.
so so lots of good stuff coming, lots of new technology in the equipment side. IMTS was amazing this year. I mean, I
It
saw just a
was.
lot of
It was.
very cool technology.
And I think there's some things that are trying to happen and change to encourage the next generation to even understand what manufacturing is. I know the SPE Mold Technologies division that I get to be a part of. We started a program called Track the Apprentice that Hannah is running, where we have a young lady. Her name is Taylor. And we're following her journey. So she started as an apprentice while she was in high school, and now she's a full-time employee, and she's doing amazing over there. And so we're tracking her journey. So we followed her at IMTS with the stuff that she was learning. We follow her at work. You can go on her LinkedIn page or the SPE Mold Technologies Division LinkedIn page, or there's a YouTube channel, and you can just watch all the videos in her journey. And the hope is that it gets people excited, that it
Right.
gets younger people excited, that it gets their parents excited, because what we realized is a lot of these organizations are filled with older gray-haired men, right? To a lesser extent, and that's not really appealing to the next generation. they want to see people like them, right? Like attracts like. So what we want to do is tell the story from a younger person's perspective, from a next generation perspective on what that looks like, why they enjoy it, why it's fun, what they get to do, how they're learning, and just track that entire journey. Yeah, Hannah just posted a link to the content that we're talking about. So thank you, Hannah,
Yeah.
for doing that. And I know you're still watching. That's so nice of you.
And
Um,
listening.
yeah, and it's really cool. It's gotten good response. Scott Peters was just saying we need to try and get Mike Rowe involved in this because he'd be a great advocate. But I don't know how to get a hold of Mike Rowe. If I could get a hold of Mike Rowe, then that would say something different about me. But
We tried that. He's quite expensive to get
I'm
excited about these things, right?
yeah, I'm sure. He
Well,
sounds like the everyman, but
right, but it's great that you guys are doing that, and I know Hannah and I have talked before about this too. I mean, there's certainly that opportunity. You're right. That's the makeup. Less than 2% of the population of over 100 tool builders that we collect data for are women or diverse. So even though they might be younger, they're still white men, and I have no issues with white men. So don't take that way. Right?
me
But
neither.
lots of opportunities. And the other thing that I've really been touting as we go around to all these shops and these conferences is, take a look at your shop. Like,
Right.
what does it look like? Do you keep your house as dirty as some of the shops that I go into
Yeah.
on a daily basis? Brighten up the facility. And you mentioned Kyle from MSI Mold Builders. I mean, I was just there. They put all new lights in, they cleaned it up, they put a new break room in. I mean, that's retention. That's
Yes.
attraction, right? That's how you get people to walk in. We hear all the time people walk in the door, they walk out on the floor and they're gone by lunch. Well, some of that's because it's unsafe, it's dirty. They can sit in front of a computer and make money.
Yep.
So we've got to get that change of perception through making it look good, and you're dead on. Women aren't going to come if they don't see other women. Young men aren't going to come if they don't see other young men.
And that's the way it. Of course, it's going to be that way because then people don't feel welcome. We just here's a little pitch. We just changed all the lights in our facility, and it was free. So there's a lot of lighting companies, and I'll have to give a link to our guy. So ComEd is paying lighting companies to go in and change all the lights to LCD lights because it's cheaper for them to buy lights than it is to build a new power plant. And
Right.
so if you're looking at freshening up your facility, your space, there's a good chance that if you find an industrial lighting place, they can get you huge, massive discounts where you're looking at it going, I'm not going to spend, $10,000 on new lights. It could cost you maybe 500, maybe it's
Right.
$1,000 to put them up, but it's things that you don't know about, which can have huge impacts on the morale of your company, the look of your company, when customers walk through, when prospective employees come in, everything. It brightens up the space, as cheesy as that sounds.
Right. I agree.
Our friend Don from Plastics News joins us, and he says, "Hi, Laurie and Tony. I'm enjoying the conversation. What are your thoughts about tariffs and the impact on tooling? Seems like they're here to stay." Thank you, Don.
Yeah. I agree. They're here to stay. I think there's not a big change. I mean, originally when the current administration got in office, there was a lot of talk about a different approach to China. And I think that given all the other crises that we're going through in terms of inflation and war and supply chain issues and COVID, that's been put a little bit on the back burner.
Sure.
We believe, and all of the folks at the Franklin Partnership that we work with through AMBA believe as well that these tariffs are likely here to stay. And certainly, if the administration flips again in 2 years, we'll likely see those stay intact. So I really don't believe we're going to see any changes. Some of the 301 tariffs on product, like computers and phones and things we buy at Christmas, may get lifted, but the government has pretty much said that they're going to keep those industrial tariffs in place. And it definitely helps. I'm not saying people don't go to China at all, but there's definitely been some shift and change in that, combined with the challenges that we see with the COVID situation.
So did you notice anything? I wanted to ask this when you were asking about the reshoring thing. Like in 2020, 2021, I had this theory that America had a very good, or North America, we'll say, America, Mexico, Canada, we had a really good opportunity to prove what we could do and stay cost effective when it comes to competing with China or places in Europe. And my thought was, we've got this window, right? We've got this window where we can be successful and say, look, we're still here. We can do all this. And it's up to us to prove it and stick with it. And then I thought, well, this is only going to last so long, right? Because people are fickle and we have short-term memory. And eventually you go back to that spot where you go, remember when we used to do this cheaper? Why aren't we doing that?
Right.
And then we go back to the way it was, and then we remember, and then we get burned again, and it goes, it's that system. Was there that happening, or is it still too small of a window to think about what that looks like?
Yeah, you and I are completely aligned on that one. We have short memories in this country, and not us as tool builders, but us as the big companies that are struggling. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that just in the last 3 weeks, I've talked to two large automotive OEMs and a couple reporters who have told me that all they're hearing is that when the growth comes in the next few years, we won't have the capacity here.
Yeah.
So, my new charge from the platform is yes, we do. We have the capacity. So it's definitely something. China's not going to go away. They've built an incredibly large industrial base of tool makers, but they have absolutely struggled in COVID. Some of them have gone out of business, right? And
Right.
we have to stay strong as an American tool building industry here. We've got to be flexible. We've got to manage our people well and be able to do more with the same, because we're not going to find 10 more people to increase our capacity. So you're dead on, and I think that this is the window we're in right now, and we've got to be competitive. We can't price gouge. We
Mm-hmm.
need to go and be competitive, make money, and provide great value to our customer. I mean, at the end of the day, we know they don't always choose us by value, but the more value we provide, the better.
Yeah, and that's where I was trying to see if it was a long enough sample size to take between when China opened back up, if they were starting to get busy again, if people had already forgotten if they were going back that route to where it closed down again. How many times is it? How many strikes is it before you go, listen, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay here for now. Unless we can't meet the capacity, unless we can't deliver on what we're saying we're going to deliver on, then that's one thing. But if it's just, let's go back to saving a little bit of money. We can deal with the delays. Hopefully it stays where it's supposed to stay.
Right. Well, remember, their cost has gone up too because they were shut down for how long, where they lost sales
Yeah.
and profit. So, it'll be interesting to see as things get a little busier how competitive they are on the pricing side of things as they regain the losses they've had. So, we'll see. I'm going to still fight for American mold builders in this one.
I'm right there with you. I think it's interesting. Right before COVID happened, a friend of mine works in Washington. I might have told you this, and he sent me a message and he said, you seem pretty connected in a lot of areas. I'd like to pick your brain on some stuff. And I thought, well, I'm probably not the right person, but I know the right people. I was going to introduce him to you. And he was asking if the government is wondering if there was a major issue, could America stand on its own for its manufacturing needs, for let's say munitions, for everything, right? Or are we going to be relying on the rest of the world to help us because we're so far behind? Apparently, at that point, the government was trying to figure out, how do we improve where we are to get us to compete with the rest of the world? Where would you fall on that?
Well, interesting. We had similar conversation. My colleague, Carol Walton, who most of you know as well, had the opportunity to speak to Powell at the Federal Reserve. And it was the exact same question.
Hmm.
What happens with capacity in this market and particularly workforce? And to be honest, those people in our government who are, pushing interest rates because they're following what they need to do to fix the economy, they're not in touch with people like your listeners. They don't
Right.
know on a day-to-day basis what they're struggling with. So Kara did a phenomenal job and had a very limited amount of time, but she did a phenomenal job showing them what the opportunities were, where's the workforce challenges, and how we can support American manufacturing independently here, that the capacity's here, the people's here. Yeah, there's work to do, right? We have to get people excited about these jobs. and we have to get people excited about coming back into this workforce. Those who might have left to go into a gig economy or something of that nature.
Yep.
But we can do it. We just need that concerted marketing effort. It's just like your micro effort, right?
Yep.
It's how do we show people how exciting these things are? And I'm working diligently to try to get cool videos of great looking tool shops so we can show them and say, look, these are not dirty, dingy, bad places to work.
Yeah.
And we have the work for you at really good rates.
Well, and I think too, it's got to be like put your money where your mouth is kind of thing in my estimation, right? So you've got mold builders, you got molders, you got manufacturing people that say that we want people to build stuff in the United States, right? We want to you should be using us because we're here, we're American product, we're an American company. And then they'll buy tools to do the work from overseas because it's cheaper and they're trying to save money. And it's gotta be a give and a take with it, right? So if you need parts, if you need rotaries, you need fixtures, you need different stuff, you can't as a company look for the cheapest cost either. You have to also support the American businesses that are here so that we all grow together.
That's right. That's right. And that really was the premise of a lot of the tariffs originally back in 2020, right? Was like we have to support our own economy right here. We can't buy it in China and then expect, one of your listeners to fix it when they didn't get the right work in the beginning. Had they gotten the right work in the beginning, they probably would have put less hours into it. So, look, we're never going to compete on a direct price basis with China. That's just the nature of the beast. And I
Right.
shouldn't say never. I mean, there's definitely been some cases where I've seen us compete, but where we have to compete is working every day diligently at improving our own business. Where's the waste? How do we drive improvement? If we can close the gap at all, then we have to sell on our why and our
Right.
capabilities and why we make an impact. Show the ROI and show how that tool is going to last the life cycle as opposed to rebuilding one that you might get from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think there's so many things, in my opinion, running a business now. There's so many things that I don't think people take into consideration when they're thinking about competing with China on price, right? When you say, well, we're never going to be right there, I don't think we will be because our insurance is higher. Our,
Mhm.
our wages are higher.
Right.
Property is higher. Taxes on business is higher. All of those things are higher, which means that you can't compete at the same tooling costs. It has to cost more if you want to treat the employees, the team, the environment, the communities. If you want to give back to all of that, that money has to come from somewhere. It's not a bunch of rich guys running around spending all their money going crazy. A lot of that goes into bettering their shops, creating more safe environments, providing good insurance, healthcare, all that stuff within the company, not as on a national level, if that makes sense.
Right, absolutely. And that's where things like, this podcast and other public areas where we can continue to put pressure on those big companies. I mean, I had a big OEM say to me the other day, I'm going to run out of die capacity and I need it. Where can I get it? And I said, you do get that you created this problem. So you sourced stuff over there a long time ago, and we've got to bring it back, and we have to be committed to our local businesses in a way that allows us to be effective. Now, do they need to be better? Sure, we all
Of
got to work
course.
at being better every day, but we got to have a chance, right? So I think there's a lot of things that we can do publicly to continue to put that pressure on driving that American base of manufacturing. We do have a bit of a disadvantage right now because of our dollar.
Right.
We've talked about this before, right? Canada has an advantage. Even Europe has an advantage over us now. So that as we right size the economy and get things back in line, I hope that those will come to closer to parity, so that that's not something we're winning and losing business over.
I agree with you. Chris Holden's back. He says, what are you hearing from mold makers about how additive technology may or may not reduce costs, shorten lead times, or improve tooling performance?
That's a great question. We're not seeing as much on additive as I thought we would have by now, right? When we first started seeing a lot of it, even in molding, the ROI is still very difficult to be able to get through. Now, Our friends at Mantle are working hard to launch,
Yep.
new additive tools themselves. There's still size constraints there. Where we're seeing the greatest use of additive is definitely some of those big mold makers have purchased these machines and they're using them for details and different minor components on the tool. But I've seen a lot of people building fixtures and
Yep.
and building, product that allows them to make sure that they can get the geometry right. And several shops using them to fix components on their machines
Right.
when they couldn't get them from other, from whatever it is. If I own a Makino or I own a DMG or something and something goes down and the lead time's too long, they're printing the part and they're letting the machine continue to run. So not as much as we thought, but I think the cost is still prohibitive right now.
It's a, in my opinion, is a very creative fix to a problem, right? There's that window of I only need this many, but I'm hoping to grow to this many. Well, it's
Right,
this many, it makes sense. But there's that balance where it crosses real quick when you're talking about having to make tooling and find a molder and buy time and how many parts you're going to run. A lot of the times, these small run parts, that's just getting the machine up to speed.
right,
That's not worth their time to build a tool or put it in the press or do any of that. And that's where you got to find those those additive farms that can knock those kind of projects out. We recently bought a metal 3D printer, and we bought another. I don't even know which model it was, but a lot of that is to build our own part for our laser welding systems or engravers, because we're selling maybe 30, 40, 50 machines. We can't go make mass amounts of parts, but we can print them and we can have
right,
exactly what we need, and we can change them if we need to, in a very timely way, and we get exactly what we want. We don't have to worry about anything. We need 5 new joysticks. Okay, we'll have them in 3 hours. It's great. It's
right,
awesome.
right. Yeah, a lot of molders doing it for fixtures and solving problems at the molding level as opposed to mold builders.
Yeah, it's a great solution to be able to do that. David Ramirez is with us. He says, totally agree with you, Laurie. Additive is not quite there yet to make the molds themselves, but there are many other ways to use additive to improve fixed parts of the molding process. Yep. And that's basically exactly what we both agreed on. So all three of us are smart people today. It's good. It's good. Makes me happy. Um, so I read in your notes that you're writing a book.
We are writing a book. My partner Scott and I are writing a book on driving flexibility. How do
Okay.
manufacturers, what's the secret sauce to driving flexibility? What are the top performers doing to really make an impact? When we look at the makeup of companies, there is, a third of the population. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about stamping or mold building or molding or die casting, that are really top performers, right? They're constantly got that sort of unrest in their belly to say, what's next? What's
Mm-hmm.
next? How do we improve? And they're looking particularly at a lot of this new younger workforce and saying, how do you help us be better? What can we do
Yeah.
different? Whether it's attracting people, whether it's solving problems, and really embracing the next generation. I tell my staff all the time, you guys are hands down far smarter than I ever was at your age, more than I am today. The only thing I have under my belt is experience, right? So, you got to turn them loose and allow them to help you solve problems. And so we're trying to really write a book for the next generation of leaders, those people in our leadership forum.
That's exciting. I wrestle with the idea of writing a book. I have a hard enough time reading books. Um, I have thoughts, but it's and where do you find the time is what it boils down to
Right.
write on top of all the other stuff that you're doing. But that's exciting. How's the process been with writing a book?
It's been good. It's good having a ghost writer so you don't have to write yourself and you do a lot of interviewing. It's tough because if you think it's tough to read a book, you should see what it's like to try to set up all the interviews, right?
Yeah,
Um, but we're gonna release it early in the year, probably springtime, and hope to have it for several of the key conferences. And it's been exciting. And it's just been it was one of the passions that I've had since frankly, my father looked at me about a week before he died, and he said, "You better write a book." He says,
Ah,
I'm gonna be watching you."
nothing like guilt.
Right. So we're excited about it, though. It's really coming together real well, and it's going to be a short read and something that, our goal is that the next generation leaders picks it up and learns one thing that's critical that makes a difference and an impact for them as they walk through their journey into leadership.
Yeah, I think you caught me with quick read. That's always a selling point for me.
Yep.
What I found is I can digest about 5 pages at a sitting. More than that, and my brain starts to go all over the place, and I get distracted, and I read the words, but I have no idea what they said. And
Yep.
so, not that you're writing this for me, but 5 pages per chapter is great.
Well, most of my toolmaker friends have ADHD, so it's hard to focus on reading a book, right?
I've never been diagnosed, but I wouldn't be surprised. That's
Yeah,
where I
I
land
have
on
the
that.
same problem, so don't worry. I don't read a lot of books either. I have a stack of them right here, but I don't read a lot of them.
Have you started reading them, or are they just sitting there? Because that's
Uh,
that's that's a
I
problem I
do.
have. I buy a bunch of books and I start reading them, and then I'm like in the middle of 4 of them, and I don't remember which part was in which book.
Yeah. No, I don't pick one up until I'm done with the other one.
That's my favorite thing about flying is get to the airport early. I got an hour and a half to kill. I can read, and then wherever I'm flying, I put my headphones on. I just zone in. I read. I've started using a highlighter in my books. My books are highlighted. My high school teachers that thought I was helpless would now say I'm doing it the right way. So there's that.
That's good. It's good.
One of the things I want to do with all those things that you read, right? How do you remember the stuff? You read it, you get like a couple nuggets out of a book that maybe stick with you. So what I want to start doing, I haven't done it really well, is like a living document where I'll go back through the book afterwards and just retype all the highlight points, and then I can section them out based on what I'm looking for. And then if I ever have a moment where I need that inspiration for the next idea or whatever that looks like, I can go back to the book, my book, my Word document, and see
Right.
what did I read that I liked and what book was that in. It's a work in
Well,
progress.
the key, I think, to reading a book is make sure you pull out one or two critical nuggets. It's kind of
Yeah,
like how we do our leadership forum is we don't let you feel like you got to walk away with 10 things. What's the one or two things that you captured from the book that you're going to go execute on?
right.
And then, got to hold yourself accountable or find somebody to hold you accountable.
I guess it would be bad if you read a book and you walked away going, okay, there's 20 things I have to do. Like one or two is probably great. What is the one or two things that stuck out that makes you say, this is what I'm going to do next?
Well, it's no different than strategy in your company, right?
Yep.
What's the one or two things we have to go do this year as a company to be effective? And the rest of the things will fall in line. If we get those two things done, then we move on. But too many times people try to take on 10 and they spread themselves too thin, and then we don't make progress. And that's also how you lose morale of your staff, right? You got to be able to keep them excited and celebrate the wins. Have a party when you win on that goal, and make sure that they know what they contributed to it, because those are, again, retention related things that really drive performance.
I think that's critical. I think you have to be willing to say thank you. You have to be willing to acknowledge success and celebrate everything, right? I might be accused of over cheerleading sometimes because I want to celebrate every single little success, because you don't know when the next one's going to come, and you don't
Right.
know who's most excited about the one that is currently happening. And there's all kinds of different things. There's no reason not to celebrate it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But on the same side of celebrating, I think you also have to not forget about accountability in a kind and loving and caring and informative way, not scolding people all the time, but just explaining maybe why this wasn't the right decision.
Absolutely, it's critical. Number one challenge of young, up and coming, struggling leaders is holding people accountable. We had
Oh,
a young man at our leadership forum for the first time. He's 26, and he is responsible for a shop floor of machinists who every one of them is over 55.
oh, that's
And,
hard.
and we went around the table. We said, "What's your biggest challenge?" He said, "Well, let me tell you." He said, I know nothing, and they know everything.
Yeah.
And it's hard to gain that respect and figure out that. So it's doable, right? We gave him a lot of good tips, I think, to go back and try to work through, and I hopefully he's seeing some progress from what I've heard from him. So it's doable. It's about humility, and yet it's also about, look, this is kind of our plan and where we're going, and I'm going to hold you accountable to that plan. And if you want to do something different, then we're going to have to talk about it.
Yeah. And I think that's difficult, especially when there's that age gap where you're leading people that are older than you, more
Hmm.
seasoned than you, especially if you're in a leadership position, but not necessarily a technical side of the leadership position too, where people might look at you and say, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not doing it
Right.
that way.
Right.
And so I can see that as a definite struggle. And I think the other thing that is difficult, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me that the ultimate leadership, the ownership of the company, was siding with the team instead of the direct contact, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
So that person didn't have any support, even though they were right? Like everything that they were trying to get people to do, you and I would 100% agree with that. Yes, you have to hold people accountable. Yes, you have to fill out your paperwork properly. Yes, you
Right.
have to do all these things. But when push came to shove, they didn't want to do it. And so they were given the pass, and the person in charge was kind of told, listen, we're just going to let them do what they're going to do because it's hard to find people right now, and I don't want them to leave.
Right. But you've just identified the number one biggest challenge in companies to be wildly successful in terms of creativity and throughput and profitability is, everybody has a different personality. And
Yeah.
some of those personalities can destroy a team or teamwork and the ability to move forward with progress. So it really is about humility. I mean, you mentioned Jen from Falcon Plastics. I mean, one of the most humble presidents I've ever met at a very young age, and that's why people follow people that they like,
Yep.
and they will follow the leaders that are humble and yet still hold you accountable in a way that allows you to improve as a person.
Yep.
So those are some of the key things that tie into that leadership piece.
It's and it's those things that are difficult to train, right? It's hard to train people to be humble and kind and love people and take care of people and want that for them, because you think that you're just supposed to be mean and powerful, and my way or the highway, and that model is gone. I mean, that was probably a model that existed for a very long time, and it could have been successful for a little while, but that model dies. I remember Greg from Paragon. He gave me a book that he said is mandatory reading material at Paragon in Michigan, called The Servant. And
Mhm.
every leader in that organization has to read this book. And he said he reads it every time. How many times? He said he was read it like 8 times, and every time he reads it, he gets more stuff out of it, more details that he didn't find before. But it's just a different way to lead, to be a servant leader instead of a dictator leadership.
Absolutely. That was the old days. That was my father's leadership style,
Yeah,
because
same.
he was born in the 20s. So manufacturing was dictatorship all the way. And the best part about him was he knew when to step out of the way, because he knew his style wasn't going to work anymore. And
Mm,
and that's not what most good owners today do. They don't see the difference. And that's why we still go places where people say, this darn younger generation, nobody wants to work, and nobody wants to apply themselves or work hard. And I really think that that's not true.
yeah.
Yes, is there a fraction of the population out there that's like that? Sure. But the truth is, they're out there. We just haven't made them excited enough about manufacturing because of all the things we've been talking about already. So we have to find them. We've got to track them, and we've got to show them why they contribute value. Right? Everybody wants something different.
No, I agree with you. Okay, two quick things, and then I'll let you go because I was late. How about this one? What is the main thing that influences your decisions?
In my company, you mean?
Ah, you choose. Dealer's choice.
So
Is that
um,
different? Is in your company different than your life?
not really. My personal why is to make an impact every single day in my partner's life, in my children's lives, in my employees' lives, in my clients' lives. So the one thing I realized more than anything else through my journey was that I lived that why for a long time, and I forgot the most important person. And so now I try to turn towards making a difference in my own life, because
Oh
that's really
yeah, that's hard.
important. That's really important too. Things like health, and I went through a health scare in 18 and 19, and so turning myself to making sure I'm healthy was also part of that path. So that's really how I make our decisions. They're value based. If it's the right thing to do for the customer and it makes a difference, then we do it. If it's the right things for my children, then I do it. So
Yeah,
it is my daily litmus test for sure.
that's awesome. That's good. It's good. I feel maybe that's why we get along so well. I feel the same way. Like, make a difference. What are you doing? What impact are you having on the people around you? Everybody has an impact. Is it a positive impact or a negative impact? Right.
Right.
And you have that choice. Like, that's one of those things that people actually have a choice in. Nobody just blends in, right? Even if you think you're blending in, you're having an impact on somebody based on what they're seeing of you. What kind of
Right.
attitude are you giving off? What's your personality? Like, people can feel that energy. You might think, I'm in a bad mood, I'm just going to stay over here and be by myself, but there's an aura, there's an energy, there's an impact that has on everybody else that sees you and is around you. And when you leave your house in the morning, you or wake up, you have the opportunity to say, what kind of impact am I going to leave today? What am I going to be to the people around me?
Right. And how do you set the tone if you're a leader? When you walk in, and do you say hi to everybody? Do you smile? Are you grumpy? Those things are so critical and so important to helping people understand whether you're approachable or not. And it's not, no, none of us are perfect at it, right? We all have those
Right.
days.
Right. And then being able to know when you can show that emotion and when you can't show that emotion. Because if you're always just happy and there's never anything bothering you, well, then that's a load of BS too. And
Right.
so knowing when, like you said, to be humble and share some of the stuff that you're going through with the people around you, so that they can feel comfortable sharing with you and understanding what that looks like. And I think Chris Chirilla, he says something similar. He says, that's a long one. Humility and empathy have been the biggest lessons to learn as a leader, as you really cannot learn it until you start living through your 65 associates. Truth. You experience everything that they have going on and have to be present and supporting. Servant leadership is really the best path. Navigating that and not being taken advantage of is also difficult. Oh, that's a big one. I agree, Laurie. You cannot drive the shop as a dictator any longer. That's a big one that I heard somebody say one time is, I don't want my kindness to be considered weakness.
That's right. Well, and the humility part of it is important. Think about COVID. I mean, when we had COVID, I was going through some cancer treatments, and we kind of sat down to our employees and we said, "Look, guys, there's no book on how to do this.
Yeah.
So we're just going to be open and honest with you. Here's what we're struggling with. We're going to make these choices and these choices. We're open to input. I mean, we got small. We only have 20 people, but people were worried about their jobs, and
Right.
we have to remember that oftentimes all of us have personal baggage and sometimes professional baggage, and
Yeah.
it's tough for them to be managed at the same time. But if we put our pants on the same way. It's just my partner uses the term that the higher up the ladder, the more the monkey's ass you see. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, right? So we have to make sure that we're showing them the best part of us, even if that's vulnerability.
Yeah. And I think part of that as a leader, like you said, with COVID is understanding where we are today, not necessarily where we are tomorrow, because tomorrow changes, right? We have no control.
Right.
We have some control, but very little control over what tomorrow or next month or next week is going to bring. And so all we can do is say, okay, this is what we know today. Where we're at today, this is how we're making decisions. And these decisions are based on the information that we have in front of us. As
Right.
the information changes, the decisions may change, or they're going to stay the same. That's basically what we did through COVID. But the other thing we did is we said, we're not letting anybody go, right? Everybody here is safe. We're not going to do a layoff to save money. We're going to figure that out. So, if we say you're part of the team, say you're part of the family, then you're part of the family, right? And you don't just cut somebody out because it's a scary time and you don't know what money's going to look like. You figure that out.
Right.
And as
Totally
long as
agree.
people knew that, we were okay. Like we were going to figure it out. We're getting some spam messages now. Find your love in your city. Okay, I guess you get everything. That's
Right.
a fun part of this. And so the last thing I wanted to ask you is what is something coming up in your life that you're excited about? What is an upcoming life event that you're excited about?
I'm super excited about the holidays actually.
Yeah.
To see friends and family we didn't see for a couple of years. And I don't see my kids a lot. They're grown. My son's a tool maker and my daughter's in college. So and I miss them. So I'm looking forward to the holidays. I'm looking forward to slowing down a little bit and seeing family and just celebrating life. That's my focus is make a difference and celebrate life, live every day.
Do you have a hard time slowing down?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've always been a workaholic, but part of my love of being here in Florida is that I'm on the Gulf and I have a boat and I get to you're looking at it every day, so you're forced to relax, right? So when you're
Right.
not battening down the hatches from hurricanes, you get to have a really good time.
Well, I guess you did okay with the hurricanes. Your house is okay.
Yep,
Your situation is okay. That's good.
yep, all's good.
Good. So we always end every show with a prayer because I think it's important. Do you have any prayer requests that you would like us to include? Or anybody that's listening, do you have any prayer requests that you would like us to include?
I think just continuing to pray about the future and good things and people being open to change. Those are the things that are most interesting to me because it's going to be a tough year for some. And I don't mean like it's going to be bad, but it's not like we're over plethora of work. So we have to stay focused and continue to put our heads down and do the right thing.
No, I 100% agree with you. So I appreciate you bearing with me during our opening headache. We had more stuff go wrong today than we have in a while, but your patience was greatly appreciated. So I'm going to pray real quick, and then I'll let you be on your way, and I'll say thank you then. But Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to talk with my friend Laurie. Thank you that she's such a blessing to the industry and the people around her, that her passion is infectious, that you've given her the opportunity to reach hundreds of thousands of millions of people with conferences and books and employees and leadership conferences, and just putting her in a position to make such an impact on your world. And we just pray that the future would continue to be positive for not just the industry, but for people as a whole, that we would look at every day as a blessing and a reason to celebrate life and celebrate the people around us, and remember what we're here for. We're here to love each other, make an impact on other people, and grow your kingdom. And it's because of all those reasons we give you the glory, and it's in Jesus' name. Thank you, Laurie.
No problem. Thank you, Tony. It was great to talk with you as always.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I can't wait to see you May 4th and 5th, and maybe even before that. I don't know what your schedule is, where you're going to be, or what that's going to look like, but I'm always happy to run into you. So thank you for, like I said, everything that you do for the industry, the way that you've inspired me and so many other people. You make an impact. So you're living your goal. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Tony. Take
All right.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, we made it through. And I think, just my opinion, that was a good show. I think we did a good job today. It's been a hot minute. We apologize for not being around as much as we would have liked to. Things have been a little bit crazy, a little bit hectic. So here's what I'll say. I'm going to invite you. If you would like to be part of the show, if you think that you know somebody that should be on the show, we want to hear from you guys. And so what you're going to do is you're going to email Vanessa. You're not going to email me because I'm going to forget. So you're going to email Vanessa F at alliancelasersales.com, and she will get back to you with everything else that you need to do. And we are currently looking for more guests to book things out. The holidays is going to be a little bit rough. We're going to figure some of that stuff out too. And we have some big ideas for things that we want to do with the Manufacturing Alliance. Not just podcast. We are planning on being at PT Expo, and here's some fun. We're thinking about turning it into like a game night, game day. So if that's something that might interest you and you're going to have a team there, let us know. Maybe we'll do some Mold Builder Family Feud. Maybe we'll do some Jeopardy. Maybe we'll do some minute to win it challenges. I don't know. We can do all kinds of things. And I think that would be entertaining, to say the least, or it'll be a terrible failure. And that's kind of the way I look at everything we do. Either it goes well or it fails miserably. And luckily, we haven't had many fails miserably. So that's a good thing. But really, I just want to say thank you for all the support that we get. I was just at the mold making and molding expo, and I heard a lot of good feedback and comments from people. So we appreciate it. And really what we want to do is we want to, like Laurie said, make an impact on your day and make you laugh a little bit, bring you a little bit of information, tell your story, tell other people's stories, and give some people some inspiration to keep going and make a difference and be better. So on behalf of myself and Laurie and Alliance and everybody else that was part of this show, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Take care and God bless.